You were formed in sacred silence. Hands of heaven shaped your frame, breathed alive by love eternal, long before you earned a name. Not a flaw, not a burden, not a role to keep you bound. You're the image of the Maker.
Imagine a world where no one ever stops, where work, responsibilities, and distractions consume every moment of our lives. Now, take a step back and ask yourself, when was the last time you truly rested? We live in a culture that glorifies busyness. Productivity is a badge of honor. But what if the secret to a more meaningful, balanced life isn't doing more, but stopping? The ancient practice of the Sabbath isn't just a religious tradition. It's a revolutionary principle that can transform our spiritual, mental, and physical well-being. Let's study what are the spiritual consequences of a non-stop life. The concept of the Sabbath is deeply woven into the fabric of faith, particularly in the Old Testament. Exodus 31 verse 14 tells us that God commanded the Israelites to keep the Sabbath as a sacred sign of their covenant with Him. So breaking this command wasn't just a minor mistake. It was seen as a serious act of disobedience. Numbers 15 from 32 to 36 verses. But what does that mean for us today? When we neglect time for spiritual rest and reflection, something deeper happens. We drift. Our connection with God weakens, drowned out by the noise of our daily lives. Isaiah 58 verses 13 and 14 speaks of the joy and blessings that come from honoring the Sabbath. It's not just about following a rule. It's about opening ourselves to peace, renewal, and divine provision. Then what is the science of rest? Why your mind and body needs a Sabbath? The impact of rest goes beyond spirituality. Modern psychology confirms what ancient wisdom has always known. Without intentional rest, we break down. There follows burnout and stress. Our world runs on deadlines, emails, and endless to-do lists. But studies show that constant work without rest leads to exhaustion, decreased productivity, and heightened stress. Simply put, we weren't designed to function without pause. It can also cause weakened relationships, because when work takes over, something else suffers, our relationships. Time with loved ones becomes an afterthought rather than a priority. The Sabbath offers a designed moment to reconnect with family, friends, and community. It can also cause loss of perspective. When life becomes all about work, we risk losing sight of what truly matters. Taking a Sabbath forces us to step back, reflect, and recalibrate our priorities. What the Sabbath means for us today? Now, you might be thinking, but we're no longer under Old Testament law. And you're right. Romans 6:14 tells us that we are under grace, not the law. But the principles of Sabbath rest then. How about that? That still holds incredible value. Jesus himself put it perfectly. The Sabbath was made for a man, not man for the Sabbath. Mark 2, verse 27. In other words, it was designed for our benefit, not as a burden, but as a gift from God. Because when we ignore rest, we fall into a cycle of endless busyness, missing the renewal that our souls and minds desperately need. Honoring a day of rest, whether it's Saturday, Sunday, or another day, helps us to reclaim our peace, our purpose, and our connection with what truly matters. Let me ask you again. When was the last time you truly rested? What if you made rest a priority? What if you carved out sacred time to reflect, recharge, and reconnect with yourself, with your loved ones, and with God? The Sabbath isn't just an ancient practice. It's a radical, life-giving rhythm that invites us to pause, to breathe, to remember that our worth isn't measured by how much we accomplish, but by depth of our rest. Maybe, just maybe, the secret to a more fulfilled life isn't about doing more, but about embracing the power of stopping and trusting God to take care of us. Deuteronomy 5, verse 12, the command to keep the Sabbath holy. This verse is part of the Ten Commandments, which Moses repeats to the people of Israel before they enter the promised land. The command to keep the Sabbath holy originates from the creation story, where God rested on the seventh day. Genesis 2, verses 2 and 3. In this context, Moses reminds the people that keeping the Sabbath is not just about physical rest, but also a spiritual command. It is a way to honor God and remember His goodness. A key difference between this passage and its counterpart in Exodus 20, verses 8 to 11, is that at Deuteronomy, Moses emphasizes that the Israelites were once slaves in Egypt. The Sabbath is also a reminder that God freed them from slavery. They are no longer forced laborers, but a free people with dignity in God's eyes. Deuteronomy 6, love for God. This chapter continues Moses' teachings and focuses especially on loving God. Verses 4 and 5 contain the famous Shema prayer, which is one of the most central teaching in both Judaism and Christianity. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. Deuteronomy 6, verses 4 and 5. This teaching connects faith and action. The people must love God, not just with words, but with their whole lives. This command is so important that Jesus later refers to it as the greatest commandment. Matthew 22, verses 37 and 38. These passages share an important theme about human dignity and rest. Keeping the Sabbath reminds us that a person's worth is not based solely on work, but comes from God. Loving God with all one's heart, means that dignity and identity are rooted in knowing and loving Him. These verses invite people to rest in God, both physically and spiritually, and remind them that true worth does not come from external achievements, but from being loved by God. So rest is not a luxury, it's a necessity. In a world that tells us we must always be doing, achieving, and producing, choosing to stop is an act of defiance. The Sabbath isn't just about taking a break, it's about reclaiming what matters: our faith, our relationships, and our well being. So I leave you with this challenge. Will you dare to pause? Will you step off the treadmill of constant busyness and embrace the power of rest? Because when we do, we don't just recharge, we realign. We remember who we are. We reconnect with God. In the end, the Sabbath isn't just about stopping work. It's about starting something greater, living fully, purposefully, and in tune with the rhythm of grace. Now, go ahead, take a breath, choose rest. The world will still be here when you return. God bless you.